This is episode 109, The Shooter's Mentality. Welcome to the podcast, everybody. I'm fresh off a comp. I love competing. It's so much fun. It's a little bit of a train wreck sometimes, as we know, but I just love it. I have so much fun. And I was just in Kansas City at the Heart of America competition, and we've never done that one before. And I had heard that the Midwest comps were some of the best in terms of the ambiance and the culture, and they did not disappoint. So the podcast today, I want to talk about the shooter's mentality. And this is a really interesting concept that I think can really help you. And I want to set it up like this. I think it's really normal for humans to think that when things aren't going well, they're going to continue down that path, right? We have this thing called Murphy's Law that says that when bad things happen, that they're going to continue to happen. And we often believe they even happen in threes. Have you heard that or believed that? I've heard that. And it's kind of funny because what an unfortunate belief to believe that when something's going wrong, it's going to continue to go wrong. But this is how human brains work. And we often fall into this trap. If you've ever been on the dance floor and you've made a mistake and you've sort of convinced yourself that you've ruined everything, and then it becomes contagious and one error is going to lead to more and our missteps are going to continue to spiral, we think it is just going to keep going, right? So we don't want a bad thing to happen because we kind of treat it as a bad omen. If we're believing that bad things are going to lead to more bad things happening, does it also follow that we believe that good things happening are going to lead to more good things happening? Sometimes I think we do believe that. This is what we call a hot streak, or we're on a roll, right? We're on fire. And we do believe at times that things are going to continue to go our way a little bit. But I do feel like we sort of do it from an observational place, like not that we're creating it, not that we're in control of it, but just like, oh, we're so lucky that things are going our way. But I bet if I asked you, that interestingly enough, I bet more of us brace ourselves for the moment our luck's going to run out. And you might have said, I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. We have kind of a low tolerance at times for good things happening because we're bracing ourselves that it's about to end. So we actually have a little bit of the opposite belief. So in other words, we often believe that bad things are going to keep happening and good things are about to end. Fascinating, right? And if these are the beliefs we hold, you can probably guess what kind of experience you think you're going to have. We're going to likely find lots of evidence to support these beliefs. If I believe bad things are going to continue to happen, I can tell you lots of stories about that. And if I think good things happening is about to end and then a bad thing's going to happen, I can find lots of evidence for that. And we can keep recreating those cycles over and over again. When we fail, we expect more failure. When we succeed, we anticipate the next downfall. So let me ask you, is that how you want to live? And at times we might be thinking, well, that's just what I've seen. That's just what I've observed. But the eye sees what the mind looks for, my friends. So I don't want to live that way. So let me introduce you to the shooter's mentality. Now, it's okay that you have these patterns. It's okay if you believe this. It's okay if you've collected lots of evidence for that. After all, we're only human. But the shooter's mentality has literally the opposite approach. The shooter's mentality comes from sports psychology in reference to shooters, basketball shooters, hockey shooters, people who are shooting baskets and they have like a high number of shots, let's say. And the shooter's mentality has two key components. When things are going poorly, you're actually due for a turnaround. So success is actually just around the corner. And when things are going well, the shooter's mentality says they're going to continue to keep doing that. So either way, you're headed for success. It's literally the opposite of what we probably would believe by default. And this kind of a mindset can actually lead you to gain confidence, even in the face of those setbacks. In fact, the more mistakes you make, the closer you're getting to success. Crazy, right? Mistakes in the shooter's mentality are seen as temporary. They're isolated, right? They're going to end. They can't go on forever. So how can it be that when things are going poorly, that we're actually getting closer to success? Think of it like flipping a coin. If you flip it 100 times, probability states that about half of the time you're going to flip heads and about half of the time you're going to flip tails. And so if you've been flipping a lot of tails, heads are bound to show up soon. Statistically, it's only a matter of time. Now, you statisticians out there want to interrupt me right now. You're listening to me in your car or something and you want to yell back. Yes, that's true. But also it's a 50% probability each flip. And that is true. But if we flip that coin enough times, eventually about half the time it's heads and about half the time it's tails. We can believe whatever we want about this, but the shooter's mentality goes against logic sometimes because it's saying missed shots can be seen as a sign, an omen that you're about to have a streak of success, actually. Now, let's continue down this line. If I believe a string of failures is about to turn around, does that also mean that a streak of success is bound to end? No, not according to the shooter's mentality. Successes are seen as permanent. They are going to keep coming. This is when you're on a roll, you're on fire, you're unstoppable, right? Now, our default human beliefs might have us constantly on the lookout for the next failure. But the shooter's mentality shifts our focus to expecting success. And I know it seems irrational, but it actually doesn't have to make sense. And the key here is that our thoughts and our beliefs will often play out in our reality. They do. You are a creator. I think about this all the time. I'm a creator. Okay. And what I think, what I believe, what I say is creation. So what do I want to create? The idea is to choose the mindset in any given moment that's going to give you the best chance for success, even if it defies logic, even if it defies statistics. If I believe that I'm in a slump, then I'm probably going to start to overthink. I might try too hard. I'm probably going to start to get upset. I'm going to start to lose enthusiasm, and I'm going to essentially contribute to that failure. So when I believe I'm in a slump, I'm going to fulfill that prophecy. But if I believe that I'm due for a success and I'm watching for that, then it helps me keep my motivation up. I'm going to stay focused. I'm keeping my emotions in check because I'm not like getting all wrapped up in every single bad thing that can happen. And that's giving me the best possible chance to succeed. So in the book, The Confident Mind, this is where I first found this concept of the shooter's mentality. And he gives specific examples, one of which was a intercollegiate basketball player named Stuart Anderson. Okay. And he was having a particularly poor game and his whole team knew it. He just like couldn't sink shots. He was playing terribly. And it came down to the end of the game and they needed a big play to win. And the coach designed a play to give the ball to someone, not Stuart Anderson. Okay. Because he was not playing well. But Stuart told the coach, no, get me the ball, coach. I am due to get it in. And the coach was reluctant, but Anderson was so certain that the coach relented. And he did it, my friends. And when he was asked if he also believed then that his luck was about to run out on that same logic, like we've discussed, and he said, no, if I'm on a hot streak, I just think I'm going to make everything I look at. So I just keep shooting. How can this be? Your logical brain is going to say, how can we have it both ways? How can we hold conflicting beliefs? And I want you to know, sometimes building confidence and giving yourself the best chance requires that we ignore logic. What we really are focusing on is not logic, not fact, but what is the thinking, the mindset, the emotional state that I need to embody that's going to give me the best chance of success in this specific circumstance. I had this client who was telling me that when she did her warm-up, and if it went badly, that she had a pattern that followed, that her performance also wasn't good. But we discussed it, and we actually did have evidence that was the opposite. That could also be true, that when I have a warm-up that's not great, that I've actually gotten all my wiggles out and I've shaken off the rust, and now I've saved all my best stuff for the performance. We could also believe that when I have a really good warm-up, that it's going to continue. So I could believe when I have a really good warm up, that's going to continue. When I have a really bad warm up, that means I've saved all my best stuff for the performance, right? Like, why can't you believe that? Get yourself into whatever mindset is going to benefit you the most. It doesn't matter what we think is fact. It matters what you're believing and what that is getting you. What if I told you that you were constantly living out a self-fulfilling prophecy? What would you believe if you knew that everything that you believed was going to come true? If you knew that your thoughts and your words were like spells, what spells would you cast? And I know it might seem delusional to some, and it kind of is, but everything we believe is pretty much made up, and it's all a delusion that's going to play out. So how useful is it to believe that things are getting worse for you? How is that going to play out for you? You're going to end up creating that reality. And on the flip side, how useful would it be to believe that things are going your way? While you can't guarantee an outcome, none of us can, you can give yourself the best chance for the best outcome. What can we do to put ourselves in the best position for the outcome that we want? When you operate from a place of confidence, that's that like success is coming. It's coming. I'm in it. Everything I do is successful. When you operate from a place of confidence, that allows your talent and your preparation and your skills and your experience to shine in those moments. You still might make mistakes. And there's always going to be factors that are outside of your control, right? Judges, other dancers, whatnot, that you can't control those aspects. But if you maintain a constructive mindset, that is going to support whatever effort you do make, and it gives you the best shot at victory. So I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but here's something important that I want you to remember. You can believe whatever you want. It doesn't have to make sense to anyone. It doesn't have to even align with the science of probability. Okay. We all think our thoughts are true. And the reality is what you think and what you believe, you will create. So what thoughts do you want to think? You might think you're just observing what's happening when you say, I'm not dancing well today. But in reality, if you focus on that and you're casting spells, then you're casting the spell that you're not going to dance well today. So when you say something like that, when you think that, when you believe that, you're also deciding to carry that belief forward. You're casting a spell, and you're very likely about to fulfill that prophecy. So instead, you can observe what's happening and choose to create a different story to move forward with that's going to serve you better. There's something about this that I think is kind of interesting. And it's like, what comes to my mind is that you might argue like, well, I don't actually know what's going to happen. So I can't just say like, I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do that, or I'm going to win, or I'm going to succeed. I can't just say that because I don't actually know what's going to happen. We're all kind of waiting to see what the outcome is. And of course, nobody thinks you're an oracle, but going into a shot, going into a performance, saying and believing, I'm going to make this. You got this. Did you see Simone Biles in the Olympics take a deep breath and go, you got this? She might not have it. It might be a total train wreck. But in that moment, she's thinking and believing and supporting herself and saying, you got this. And she's more likely to fulfill that prophecy. If you think I'm going to make this, you're more likely to fulfill that prophecy. And that's going to put you in a better position rather than doubting yourself. But it's like there's this thing in our brain that's like, well, I don't want to go into it confidently and say like, you got this, and go into it with that confidence and then be wrong. Like, what if I say you got this and then I go out there and I totally blow it? Then I was wrong. And this is where you might say, I hear you guys say, like, I just need to be realistic. Like, I'm going to like extrapolate from my past patterns and my past experiences, and I'm going to be realistic. And so you're going into it already defeated in a way, and going into it doubtful, so that when it's all said and done, at least I was right about that. Like, what? No, our brains like to be right. And so it would rather predict doom and then have doom happen and go, yeah, okay, I was right, than to predict success and predict glory and predict that things are going to go well and then be wrong. But for you to give yourself the best chance, you got to go into it with that mindset. The best athletes, the best dancers, they got some version of that, my friends. I'd rather go into it like in this hopeful place with this shooter mentality and be wrong, because at least I'm giving myself the best chance. But it's very likely that I'm going to succeed because I'm casting that spell, if that makes sense. So the next time that you face a challenge, remember that you have a choice. And here's the thing, and I'll probably wrap up with this is not necessarily just a switch that you can flip when you get to a competition. This is a mindset that I would like to see you weave into your life. Where in your life are you expecting bad things to continue to happen and expecting doom? And where in your life are you having some success and watching yourself wait for the other shoe to drop? Where you're maintaining that belief that bad things continue to happen and good things end. And start to condition yourself a little bit differently, where you expect success for yourself, where you think when things are not going well, that you actually start to believe, I'm about to have a big turnaround. And when things are going well, you think it's permanent. It's going to go on forever. Like, I'm the luckiest person in the world. I often think things like, my life is so charmed. Like, I'm so blessed. And I find lots of evidence for that, right? Like, think about how you can weave this into your daily life. And it's going to feel weird, and it's going to feel foreign, and it's going to feel like you're lying to yourself at times. But if you continue this practice over time, it is going to be a part of you. And it will be like Stuart Anderson, who just believes. Someone says, how can you believe that when you're having a terrible game and we're down to the last point, that you believe you can make it? But then also when you're on a hot streak, you believe that's never going to end. How can you just believe that? And he says, I don't know. I just think that way. He's not consciously choosing to think that way, but it's because it's been woven into who he is. Let's figure out the ways to weave this into who you are. When you face that next challenge, remember, you have that choice. You can expect that things are going to go wrong, or you can adopt the shooter's mentality and expect success. And listen, it's not going to guarantee that outcome. It's not what I'm saying. But we're going into these things giving ourselves the best chance to succeed. Okay. I think this is a very good mindset for us to adopt as we're going into USDC and Ohio Star Ball, and we're going into these big comps at the end of the year. Like, let's go into it with this shooter's mentality. All right. I love you guys. Can't wait to see you at the next competition. Catch you next time.